Welcome to Big 12 Volleyball Preview Show. I am Kristen Kozlowski, joined by former volleyball standouts Alex Jean Glover and Amy Gant. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to dive into Big 12 volleyball and talk about the preseason polls and awards that have come out. Also highlight some of these teams and what makes Big 12 volleyball what it is, one of the top premier conferences in the nation. But before we get to all of that, let's talk about what you are most excited about for this upcoming season.
I'm most excited for the competition. There's not a single team that has scheduled lightly, especially in the preseason. I mean, the Big 12 is so competitive, so we'll see that in the conference play, but these teams are getting ready for that in the preseason with these hard teams coming up. They're going to be far ahead of the show when they come to conference.
They are. To survive conference, you've got to really schedule hard in preseason. And I'm just really excited for the parity within the conference because there's so much up in the air. A lot of times you go into seasons and you kind of know how it's going to end up and how it's going to shake out. But with so many new teams, so many new players, I think it's anyone's game. And I think it's going to look very different from the beginning of the season to the end. These teams are just going to get so much better.
Change is inevitable in the landscape of college volleyball right now. Well, let's get to it. First with the preseason poll, the Big 12 awards as well that were released the first week of August. BYU was chosen as the favorite to win the conference with 6 first-place votes, followed by Kansas and Arizona State, your reigning Big 12 2024 champs. Alex, as BYU gets the top spot in the preseason poll for the first time since joining the Big 12, are the Cougars ready to take on the role as the hunted this season versus being the hunters?
I think absolutely. They had 4 freshman starters last year. That's not something that we can see a lot of teams do successfully. And they were able to do so. Now those freshmen are sophomores. They got a little bit more experience underneath their belt, as well as adding a few key pieces in there coming in as freshmen. I think they've got this, and I'm excited to see what they're going to bring.
And Amy, with Kansas and Arizona State right on their heels, which one of those teams do you anticipate can really make a push, especially early on in that standing?
Well, that's interesting you say early on because I think when you play these tough teams, it's really going to affect how the conference shakes out because these teams are going to be very different with the new players. But I'm looking at Kansas, Coach Ulmer, his first season, and he is bringing in a lot of different pieces, very talented. I think the question will be, can Kansas put it together quickly enough to really make a dent in preseason and then going into conference?
Well, and he takes over a program under Ray Burchard that did a fantastic job over his 27-year tenure. So he's not walking into a program that is struggling. So he's got a lot of weapons to turn to. Are there any teams outside the top 5 in that preseason poll that you think can maybe be a dark horse or they're flying under the radar?
Well, I think the middle of the conference, you just don't even, there's so many teams that are exciting. You know, I'm looking at Kansas State last year, devastating for them to just miss getting into the NCAA tournament. And they return a ton of very talented players, very committed. They've got their goals, they're focused. So I think they could make a run in the conference as well, just with those returners. There's a few other teams that are going to be exciting to watch to see if they can put it together.
Alex, which Big 12 team has the most to prove this season, would you say?
I think TCU has the most to prove. They graduate the Big 12 Player of the Year in Para, but there's a lot of players under her that didn't really get to shine, that really didn't get to show how much power they really have. They finished 5th last year, and with how their culture has evolved under Williams, I could see them pushing into that top 3 conversation as long as they stay healthy and find that rhythm early.
The Big 12 has had 6 NCAA tournament teams the last 2 years. Amy, what does that say about the depth of the conference and where this is trending for the Big 12?
Well, Big 12, you survive conference, you're ready for the tournament. I think for these teams, they want to get to the NCAA tournament. You want to be playing in December, but you've got to survive conference. And that's what's so exciting about the Big 12 is it's night in and night out. You don't have any nights where you can kind of take the foot off of the gas pedal. You've got to go, you've got to be ready every single time. And I think that makes these players so much better. Come November, they're ready to go.
And I think just to echo you, it's so competitive, which the teams that may be ranked 5th and 6th in the Big 12 come the end of the season are still getting those higher placings when it comes to the NCAA tournament because the conference is that competitive. They're seeing it day in and day out. Every single game, it matters. And if you drop one, you could drop from number 2 or number 3 easily to number 6 or 7 just because of how competitive every single team is in that top half.
We've also seen the AVCA preseason poll come out as well. So let's touch on that a little bit because it's a little bit different in order from what we're seeing from the Big 12 poll. So I want to get your opinion on this as Arizona State comes in at 13, Kansas 14, BYU 19, followed by Baylor at 20, Utah at 23, and TCU at 25. Two other teams in the Big 12 also receiving votes early. So Amy, what do you make of the discrepancies between the two polls early?
Well, I think nobody knows what's going to happen, and I think that's really exciting for volleyball. I think with so much change, the transfer portal being really, really active, a lot of these teams in the country are having to rework quickly, add new pieces, put them together, figure out their culture, which we know is so important to winning. And it just comes down to who's going to get it done, game time. And so it comes down to each point. And so as fans, we get to be on the front row, seeing how it evolves, seeing how these players can put it together and become great.
And Amy, you talked about the transfer portal, but there's also a fair share of new coaches here in the Big 12. That can be a huge piece when going into competition. You have to get all of these players on board. You have to get them bought into the culture and really what your vision is for the team. And I think that's going to be an integral part of seeing how these teams play early on. They're going to have to buy in from day one. This needs to happen in preseason, in the offseason. It needs to be player-led, but the coaches also have to be on the same page as the players when that first whistle blows.
3 teams in the Big 12 with new coaches this year in Kansas, Cincinnati, and UCF. I want to talk just a moment about your Arizona State Sun Devils. Who were your 2024 Big 12 champions last year? First season in the Big 12. They win it, but they have a lot of roster turnover. So how valuable was that, carrying that momentum into this season? But you also have a lot of new faces coming in, Amy.
Well, I think with those new faces, Coach Van Niel really wants to focus on culture and that continuity. And so everyone gets bought in really quickly. Sun Devils, very well coached team, especially behind the service line. They are just so difficult to handle. And so I think anytime you're going to play an Arizona State team, they're going to be well coached. They're going to get out there. They're going to fight. They're very powerful, but they've got the ball control as well.
And for Arizona, another team that ended on a winning note as well in the postseason as they won the 2024 NIVC title. For Arizona, they're hungry though. That wasn't enough. They want to make the NCAA championships, Alex. What do you look forward to seeing from the Wildcats?
I'm excited to see their preseason schedule. They were told that it wasn't tough enough. So we've seen it here. Their preseason schedule is extremely tough. So I'm excited to see them come out, play with that hunger. Winning NIVC isn't an easy feat at all, but most teams are reaching for that NCAA tournament. I think they're going to be hungry, and I'm ready to see what they've got.
All right, coming up, we will break down the Big 12 preseason awards, talk about Player of the Year, Freshman of the Year. We are loaded with talent in the Big 12 for 2025. We will be back in a moment. Welcome back to the Big 12 Volleyball Preview Show. I'm Kristen Kozlowski, joined by Alex Jean Glover and Amy Gant. The first segment, we focused on the teams. Now let's turn our attention to the players that make up the Big 12. And we have a lot of talent in this conference, but the preseason Player of the Year goes to BYU's Claire Little Chambers. Claire Little Chambers had a monster 2024 season, now enters 2025 as the preseason Player of the Year. The junior outside hitter from Temecula, California. She finished third in the Big 12 in both kills per set and points per set last season. Alex, what makes this junior from Provo such a standout player?
Claire has been one of the most impactful and consistent pins in the Big 12. What I love about her, she has a strong arm, she's aggressive, but she also shows up in the big moments every single time. She's definitely going to be someone that's going to be at the top of every scouting report for BYU, which says a lot for a team that has such a loaded roster.
Well, I think you talk about scouting reports. Last year, such a big load. Like you said, everyone in the country knew that the ball was going to go to Claire Little Chambers, and she handled it. She did it. The block was lined up on her, the defense was around her, and she was still able to get the job done, especially when it was those out-of-system plays. She was even better when the game was on the line. So she's got a live arm, but she's also steady and comes up in the big moments.
Looking forward to seeing what she can do out there on the court, especially after another year of experience in the Big 12. Well, let's talk about now the freshman of the year, and it's going to go to her teammate in Sully Davis, who is coming in for BYU as well. This is a very talented freshman. Sully played this summer with the USA U19 team and won silver in the World Championships, named Best Outside Hitter during that time. There was no shortage of talented players that could have been chosen as this preseason player, but here she is, and Sully Davis, Amy Gant, and what does she bring for BYU?
I think what's really unique about Sully Davis is that she's well-rounded. She really has figured out all of the different skills. She's a complete player. She can hit, she can dig, she can pass, she can serve. She does everything well, and that's really great as a freshman coming in. And for this BYU team, she has the opportunity to come in and make a big impact right away.
And I think something that's going to be so important for her was playing for Team USA over the summer. As a freshman, you usually come in, you've been playing with your club team for a long time, a lot of times for your high school team for a long time, and you hadn't had that mix up of playing with different teammates. And I think that's going to be key for her. She already has the experience playing with different people, and she's going to bring that right into BYU.
A lot of international experiences, you talked about it. I look forward to seeing all the flavor that we're going to see in the Big 12. But two of the top players that we just talked about it. But let's get to this preseason team, as this list of players is absolutely stacked for the Big 12. And I want to ask you both, what stands out about this team? We're seeing 18-member team consisting of student athletes from the schools, 11 schools. But what are you most excited about in watching out of this group?
Well, there's so many players in here that are just fan favorites, just really exciting. You look at the top of the list, Jordan Wilson, she averaged almost 4 kills per set last year at Arizona. So exciting. And then looking over at Utah, Cameron Gabadlo, what an incredible sophomore season she had, just raised her game to the next level. She's taking on a huge load. Very exciting player as well.
I think something so interesting to see is that both setters on this list are only sophomores. That shows you the depth of the Big 12 and really how those younger players are still getting the experience to come up. I think setting is one of those hardest positions to come in and really learn your teammates, your hitters, learn how to run the court, and they did it so effortlessly. So I'm just excited to see how those two have grown over the offseason.
5 sophomores, 1 freshman make the list. So it's not just the upperclassmen out there, but there is a lot of talent across the board in youth and experience. And Amy, what does that say about the depth of the conference as well as we're seeing a lot of different teams on that list, 11 teams represented on the preseason list, 3 players coming from BYU, 3 for Kansas, but so much talent in the Big 12.
Well, and I think that speaks to the parity within the conference as well. You know, we don't have like a really heavily loaded top or bottom. From top to bottom, these are good teams, good players, night in and night out. If you're a team, you've got to come, you've got to perform because you're facing high quality players and teams every single time you get on the floor.
And it's showing us that the top recruits are wanting to come to the Big 12. You can see that with the sophomores now on the list, the juniors on the list. It's not just those veterans that are staying around. Those aren't transferring to other conferences, but those who are coming in are bringing the heat and they're showing everybody else what they've got.
We've seen a lot of movement throughout the Big 12, as we're going to see every single season, as you continue to see the landscape change with the transfer portal, with coaching changes in the Big 12. Who are you most excited about from that list that we saw in the preseason and watching how they've grown as a player from last year to this year?
Well, I think Patak there in the middle has just had a fantastic season. It's interesting to see players that maybe were role players take on a leadership role. And Elise Patak in the middle, she is so quick and beautiful, runs such a nice backslide, one of the best in the country, and really came on, had to earn the position initially, and then just took it over and became such a big force. So I think she's going to be really big in Kansas's success this season.
And talking about Patak, we also have to talk about Klein, both of them being sophomores. They really were a dynamic duo. To have a setter come in, and we know the middle connection is so hard to get precisely, especially when you're a little bit younger, a little bit less experienced, and they did it so effortlessly. I'm really excited to see how they've grown with that connection and that chemistry over the offseason.
One of the most important things when you're playing volleyball is ball control. And to get it to the setter, you're going to need that back row anchor in there. And we've seen a couple on this list here today. Let's talk about Faith Frame out of Arizona State and how she comes in. She was an all-rookie last year in the Big 12. How important is her role and the role of the libero for each team?
Well, you look at that one libero, right? On this team, of all the players, just one libero. So that's pretty impressive for her to make the team such a dynamic player. And it's so important for those liberos to run that defense. That first contact is crucial to your team's success. And so especially with all these new players coming in, that libero is so important to be able to steady out and really handle that back row.
And people say defense wins championships for a reason. Now that we're in a game where you have two liberos, previously you're only able to have one. Sometimes teams go with having a serve-receiver libero and then a defensive libero. So her being able to really hold it down back there and make sure that that first ball attack is the best that it can be, getting the ball up high and right to the setter, makes the load so much easier on everybody else.
So much talent, electric players that we are going to see this season in the Big 12. We cannot wait to continue here as we wrap up this segment talking about the preseason team. We're going to get into our favorite games coming up with the schedule. Join us next after the break. Welcome back to our Big 12 volleyball preview show. I'm Kristen Kozlowski, joined by Alex Jean Glover and Amy Gant. Now let's take a look at some of the games that will be coming up and highlight some of the games that will be on our family network of ESPN. And I want to get your opinion on which one you're most excited about. What do you have scheduled or circled on your calendar for the season?
I think what I'm most excited to see on this schedule specifically is that Arizona State versus Kansas. For the preseason poll, they're coming in at number 2 and number 3. I think we're going to see a lot of parity. Of course, we're going to see a lot of shifts. That game is just going to be so competitive between those two, just trying to raise up the rankings.
Well, I think I love that. It's like, boom, kick off the conference season. First weekend, here we go. You have some preseason games that are fun too. UCLA, a team on the rise there. So I think as TCU and these other teams have scheduled so tough in preseason, they're going to get a taste of some of the best in the country. But I love all of the Kansas games because that environment is just so much fun. And so I think all of the teams know that as much as playing the team is important, you're playing the arena and the fans. And so anytime you can have matches in the Kansas facilities, or Arizona's becoming a tough place to play. Obviously, the Smith Fieldhouse in Provo is on everyone's list as a really tough place to play, but these environments just become so electric and exciting. And then you add the teams that are amazing as well, right? Sometimes it comes down to just emotion, but when you've got teams that are high quality, it just raises the level.
Well, bringing in a new coach in Matt Ulmer, who came to Kansas from Oregon, the new fresh coach, right? And so this is going to bring on a lot of excitement for them. What other conference rivalry games do you look forward to this season?
I'm definitely looking forward to Arizona versus Arizona State. We have Arizona, who is the NIVC champions, and then we have Arizona State, who are the reigning Big 12 champions. So those are two teams who had a strong, long postseason run. So they maybe got a little bit more experience than the other teams have that didn't have that long postseason run. I think they're going to come in and show, what they've got. I think Arizona, NIVC wasn't enough for them. They're trying to make that NCAA tournament. And then Arizona State, they've got that fire lit underneath them. They know the target's on their back. So two teams that have a lot to prove.
Right, and any rivalry match, like you said, BYU, Utah, one of the best rivalries in the nation, and these two teams actually play each other twice in November. So it's at the end of the season. Ideally, you're playing your best volleyball in November, and they're going to go to each other's venues, so that's going to be heated, and then turn around and play each other a week later. It's so much on the line and so much fun. This is going to be a fantastic season for Big 12 volleyball.
Home court is so valuable. And last season, the top 5 finishers in the Big 12 standings, they went 42-3 at home. And that just shows you where you're going to finish if you can win games at home. So what do you like about the teams when you're at home and you've both been players? What makes it so much more valuable to be in your own bed, to be in your own gym with the lights on, playing at home?
Well, I think, everyone loves a home crowd because that kind of becomes your seventh man, right? When the chips are down, if you could get a fire, you feel a block and that energy that comes to you. But I love the type of team that like to play in a little bit of environment where it might be a little antagonistic. And after talking to a lot of these teams, you realize there's a lot of these players that have some fire in them that like to go in and battle.
And Amy, you talk about that home court advantage. That is a huge thing, but think about those in-state rivalries that are going on. home court advantage has a totally different meaning because you also have the fans from the other team coming in and it gets super rowdy. And really, as a player, you feed off of the fans' energy. So playing at home in those rivalry games, especially in state, is unmatched.
Well, we're going to wrap this up in our next segment. We'll put a bow on this one as we continue our Big 12 women's volleyball preview. I cannot wait to hear what Alex and Amy have about the rest of the Big 12, looking ahead for this season when we come back. Welcome back to the Big 12 Volleyball Preview Show. I'm Kristen Kozlowski with Alex Jean Glover and Amy Gant. This is it. Let's wrap this thing up for the 2025 season. What are you most looking forward to in the depth of the conference? We've talked a lot about Big 12 volleyball. Amy, what stands out to you?
Just so excited. Big 12 just becoming a premier volleyball conference in the country. For the past 2 years, 6 teams have made the NCAA tournament, consistently having 6+ teams ranked all the time, which means every night there's a Big 12 match. It's going to be a good one.
I'm excited to see the teams, but I'm also excited to see the personnel. With the transfer portal making it the Wild Wild West, we're seeing so many new key players come in, so many freshmen with international experience. So they're really going to come with that fire underneath them, and I think the momentum is going to be so great going into the season.
Each of you give me one team that you're keeping a close eye on this season to see the growth from last year to this year.
TCU. I got TCU.
I'm excited to see Kansas and what they put together.
All right. 2 teams for sure that we are going to keep a close eye on. BYU is your favorite this year. We're going to see how they can keep that up throughout the season. They're going to be the one that's going to be hunted this year. But that's a wrap for the Big 12 Women's Volleyball Preview. For my co-hosts, Alex Jean Glover, Amy Gant, I'm Kristen Kozlowski. Thank you for watching. We look forward to the season of Big 12 Volleyball this fall. We cannot wait in seeing you all at the arenas around the conference. Thank you for being with us.